Christians. When this happened, the father is very concerned that why is it that my sons have become Christians? So he came to Rasulullah and he said, Ya Rasulullah, do you allow me to force my sons to become Muslim again? So Rasulullah waited for revelation. An ayat came down like Raha Fiddin. There's no compulsion when it comes to religion. No, there's no compulsion when it comes to religion. In other words, not even the father has the right to force, very important, force his sons to accept Islam. Why? We can't stop here. So, number one, this ayat is about accepting the religion of Islam. That there's no force, there's no compulsion when it comes to accepting the religion of Islam. Once I've accepted the religion of Islam, then I have to accept everything that comes with it. Just as I have no force or no compulsion to go to a particular country, right? I have a choice whether I want to go to that country or not. But once I get the visa for that country, and then I enter into that country, now I'm bound by all the laws that that country imposes on me, whether I like them or not. Right? Even if those laws will cause me harm, but I'm bound by them because I entered into that country, and entering into that country is a acceptance that I'm going to obey all the laws. If I disobey the laws, then I would also get punishment, fine, ticket, whatever it is, depending on what kind of infringement of the law that I do. So entering into the country was not a compulsion. But once I entered, now I have to follow all the laws. And ignorance will not be an excuse. Not knowing the law would not be an excuse. No, it's my responsibility to find out. And it's also my responsibility to follow. Similarly, entering into religion of Islam is a choice. But once I entered into the religion of Islam, once I accepted the religion of Islam, now I have to follow all the laws. And the difference between this example that I've given and Islam is what? Is that when I enter into a country and I have to follow the laws, those laws might go against me. They might cause me harm. They might cause me difficulty. But religion of Islam, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated something for me, then not only is it obligated for me, but the benefit that's going to come from it is also going to come to me. And if he made something haram, then the harm that was going to come from that is also coming to me, and I'm going to be protected from that harm by avoiding that haram. So that is different from the worldly laws, which are made to benefit that country only, which are made to benefit those people, and not to benefit the person who's coming in. But the religion of Islam says this wajib that you're going to do, that benefit is also coming to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not getting any benefit from anybody doing any wajib act. Similarly, Rasulullah is not getting any benefit from a person following the Shariah or not. Similarly, the Imam is not getting any benefit. All the benefit is coming to the person who follows, who accepts. So now once I've entered into the religion, now I have to accept everything and follow all the laws. It's not like a buffet that I can pick and choose what I like. No, it's take it or leave it. Once you've taken it, now you have to accept all the laws that come with the religion. Why is there no compulsion, there's no force? We have to read further on. Like Raha Fiddin, قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. Why? Because the wrong path and the right path have been made clear from one another. That's why there's no force. That's why there's no compulsion. Because force and compulsion is only necessary where there's no evidence. Force is necessary where there's no evidence, there's no facts, there's no convincing arguments for that position. There you have to force people to do something. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that we made the right path clear and the wrong path clear. Now it's up to you to choose whether you want to take the right path which has been made clear or the wrong path which has also been made clear. So whosoever accepts the right path, then what? You'll recall that nowadays we give references to social media because quotes go around on social media. There's a quote that goes around on social media that I'm sure many of you have seen before. And it says that you are free to choose. And this is about everything, not just about religion. You're free to choose. But you are not free from the consequences of your choice. You are free to choose. Whatever choice you make, it's your own. But every choice that you make will have consequences, and you are not free from those consequences, because once you made that choice, then that consequence will occur. You're not free from the consequence of that choice. So every choice would have consequences. What's the consequence of accepting the right path? There's no compulsion. Why? Because it's been made clear. If somebody accepts, then فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, whosoever rejects all the false deities. Taghut here refers to everything that comes up in opposition to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether that is my nafs, or it's shaitan, or it's any other individual or system which is in opposition to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of them are taghut. Nafs, shaitan, individual system, all of these that goes against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that invites me against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taghut. So فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ, you have to reject the. So whosoever rejects this taghut, yani everything that goes against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For وَلْيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ, and then believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this we already know. We know what? We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to attest from the kalima through to the tashahhud. What do we say? Ashhadu an la ilaha. So this is yakfur bit taghut, that I testify that there is no God. In other words, all the other false deities, I testify that they are not. Illallah, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So first I have to reject all the false deities. First I have to disassociate from all the false deities, and then accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So say the same thing in the ayat, is فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ. The rejection of false deities is first, and belief in Allah is after that. So whosoever does this, what's going to happen? What is the consequence of their choice? فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. Then that person has held on to the firmest handle, لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا, which will never break. So what is urwatul wuthqa? That is this firmest handle that will never break. Every Thursday night you recite it in the ziyarat of Imam Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi. Ashhadu annaka a'immatu min wuldik kalimatu taqwa wa a'lamul huda wal urwatul wuthqa. That I testify that you and all the imams from your progeny, they are kalimatul taqwa, the word which is taqwa. In reality, the embodiment of what it means to be taqwa. Wa alamul huda, and the lights of guidance. وَالْعُرْوَةُ الْوُثْقَى, and that firmest handle which will never break. So, the meaning behind the handle is that I have to hold on to it. Urwatul Wuthqa is the firmest handle to never break. That will never break. If I don't want to break in my life, then I have to hold on. It is not sufficient for me to just praise the handle and say that the handle is very firm. Yes, it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already told me that the handle is very firm. But I have to hold on. If I want to be saved, then I have to hold on to the handle of this handle of guidance, which is going to save me, which is going to give me najat, salvation in this life and the next life. How do you hold on? How do you know? We have to speak about, of course, today about Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. So his life, Imam alayhi salam's life, is divided broadly into 3 stages. There's the part of his life in the time of the Holy Prophet of Islam. This is 7.5 years. From his birth until he's 7.5 years of age. This is the time in the lifetime of the Holy Prophet. Then his life after the Holy Prophet of Islam. His life under his father Imam Amirul Mu'mineen. This is the largest part of his life, from 7.5 years of age all the way through till 35 years of age, or 38 years of age. And then the last part of his life, which is his old imamate of 10 years from his shahadat of his father through to his own shahadat, 10 years of his life, or 9 or 10 years, depending on different narratives. So broadly, these are the 3 stages in his life. Each stage in his life has important lessons for us. So I'm going to try to mention a couple of things from each of those stages, so we can see the different lessons that we get from each of those stages. With regards to his life in the time of the Holy Prophet Islam, is very important. Why? Because you imagine that Rasulullah has mentioned so many narrations about Imam Hasan and Imam Hussain, and these narrations they're not controversial narrations. They're mentioned by all schools of thought. All schools of thought accept them. All schools of thought believe in them and honor them and believe in Imam Hasan and Imam Hussain. Rasulullah says, famous narrations, you heard them many times before, but I want to mention maybe a different angle on that. Al-Hasan wal-Hussain Sayyida Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. Hasan and Hussain are the leaders of the youth of paradise. Or Rasulullah says, Al-Hasan wal-Hussain Imaman Qama aw Qada. Hasan and Hussain are imams whether they sit or they stand. Or Rasulullah says that if somebody wants to see my top half resembled, then they should look at Hasan al-Mujtaba. And if they want to see my bottom half, they should see Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And all of these narrations that I'm mentioning, they're all mentioned by all the muhaddithin from all the different schools of thought in Islam. What do they mean? What do these narrations tell us about Imam Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam? And in particular, what do they tell us about his status? In addition to that, these are the narrations. In addition to that, we have ayat of Holy Quran. All the ayat which speak about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, Imam Hasan alayhi salam are included in that. For example, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Imam Hasan alayhi salam is a part of that. Or ayat that you heard from ayat Tatheer, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Imam Hasan alayhi salam is a part of this ayat as well. Or the ayat of Mubahala. فَمَنْ حَجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ. Imam Hasan and Imam Hasan. So all of these things, khulasa and summary of this is that all of these ayat and all of these rawayat, they are mentioning Imam Hasan alayhi salatu salam before he's 7.5 years of age. And they're not saying that, for example, Rasulullah is not saying that Imam Hasan will become imams when they grow up. No, he's saying they are. Not when they grow up. No, they are. That's what I'm saying. Imaman, they are imams. Or when he says they're the leaders of the youth of paradise, he's not saying that they're going to be the leaders of the youth of paradise when they grow up. No, they are the leaders. They are the Sayyid of youth of paradise now, whilst they're 7.5 and 6.5 years of age. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that when the religion of Islam is in need and Mubahala is going to be carried out, we're not waiting or we're not bringing other people. We're bringing these children to tell you that they are not ordinary. When religion of Islam will be in danger, these are the people who are going to come and defend the religion of Islam, whether they're children or they're grown up. So this is the first thing which is very important. Why in this Surah Mubarakah Ahzab that you're hearing the recitation of every day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, we mentioned one verse yesterday regarding the Holy Prophet of Islam. Another verse, this is also about the Holy Prophet incident. It's further on in that surah. This is verse number 40 of Surah Al-Ahzab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمُ النَّبِيِّينَ. Why was this ayat revealed? This ayat was revealed because people used to call Zayd ibn Muhammad. When Rasulullah adopted him, they used to call him Zayd ibn Muhammad. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a series of verses which ends on this one. And Zayd is the only companion to be mentioned by name in the Holy Quran. Verse 37, 38, 39, and this is verse 40 of Surah Ahzab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ. Muhammad is not the father of any of your men. وَلَكِنْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمُ النَّبِيِّينَ. He is the messenger of Allah and the seal of the prophets. And Muslims like this verse a lot because they use it to prove Ahmadiyya are kafir. They say Khatamun Nabiyyin, so how can you bring another prophet? But you should read the beginning of the verse as well. مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ. He is not the father of any of your men. But in the ayat of Mubahala, he's saying فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the ayat of Mubahala is saying that bring your sons. But he's already said that مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ. He's not the father of any of your men. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reply, or how there's no contradiction between these two verses, is in the pronoun that's used in the ayat. He says مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ. He's not the father of any of your men. That means the people he is the father of are not your men. They are his men. ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم. He's not the father of any of your men, but he is the father of Hasan and Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, to the extent that after the revelation of Ayat of Mubahala, Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam never used to call Hasan and Hussein his own sons. When people used to say to him, but they're your sons, he said, no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said they're the sons of Rasulullah. The ayat of Mubahala says that they're the sons of Rasulullah, so therefore they're not like your men. So now when his men are not equal to your men, how could Rasulullah be like you? How could he be? Well, your men, Rijalikum, is something else, and his Rijal, his men are something else. He's not the father of any of your men, but he is the father of Hasan and Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. So when Hasan and Hussein alayhi salam are not comparable to your men, Rasulullah, there's no chance that he could be like you. This is Imam Hasan alayhi salam in the time of Rasulullah. One final thing to say about this time. Rasulullah is sitting with the companions one day, and an elderly gentleman comes. Rasulullah gets up, he embraces him, and he says to him that, speak to Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. This elderly gentleman goes to Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, less than 7.5 years old. And he's elderly. Hasan al-Mujtaba, less than 7.5. Goes to him, they speak. Once they concluded their conversation, this elderly gentleman comes back to Rasulullah. Rasulullah gets up again, embraces him, and says to him, are you satisfied with your answers? He says, yes, I'm satisfied. And so he goes, he leaves. Companions ask, Ya Rasulullah, we've never seen him before. Companions ask, Ya Rasulullah, we've never seen this elderly gentleman before. Who is he? So Rasulullah says, it's my brother Khizr. He says, it's my brother Khizr. And he comes to me from time to time to resolve his matters. Today I was busy sitting with you, so I asked him to speak with Hasan al-Mujtaba. So the ones who don't recognize Khidr are companions. And the ones who resolve the queries of Khidr, Hasan al-Mujtaba. This is during the time of Rasulullah. Now Rasulullah's passed away. Rasulullah's passed away. Now, second phase of Imam Hasan alayhi salam, in the time of Imam Amirul Mu'mineen. In this time, there's certain things Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam couldn't say, but Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam can say that. Yes, we have a policy. The policy of Imamat is no matter how many Imams there are, only one Imam speaks. At one time there are 3 Imams, but Imamat is only with one. Yes, he is an Imam as well. The second Imam in the time of Imam Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Hasan alayhi salam is there, Imam Hussain alayhi salam is there, but they're silent. They are following the command of Imam Amirul Mu'mineen. Similarly in Karbala we have 3 Imams as well. But only one Imam's hukum will go at one time. This is the policy of Imam. But there's certain things that person who is the Imam, because the person is Imam when he's born, but he's not on the office of Imamate. So there's certain things he can say which the Imam at the time can't say. There's certain reasons. For certain reasons, certain situations, Imam can't speak. So somebody else from Ahlul Bayt would speak to say those things. So one time there's a person on the minbar, and Imam Hasan comes into the masjid. And he sees this person's on the minbar. And he stands in the masjid. And he says, this minbar is the minbar of my grandfather Rasulullah. And you have no right to sit on this minbar. This is the answer for those who think that Imam Hasan was not brave. Who think that he made peace. We'll come to that inshallah in a moment. That's the third stage of Islam. That he made peace because alayadu billah, he was not brave. No. Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, 7.5 years of age, came into the masjid of the Holy Prophet in the presence of all the adults and said that this is the minbar of my grandfather Rasulullah. And you have no right to sit on this minbar. And that person came down from the minbar. And he embraced Imam Hasan alayhi salam and he said to him, you're right. This minbar is the minbar of your grandfather Rasulullah, and nobody deserves to sit on it more than you. Now, after the Holy Prophet of Islam, there are new challenges, different challenges. What kind of challenges? For example, yesterday we mentioned, right, that the Holy Prophet of Islam passed away. Now there's new challenges. So for example, there's people, they live in distant places. And they come, they visit Rasulullah, they go back to their areas. And there's no instant communication. If it was today's day and age, you would send WhatsApp messages to tell everyone. In that time, there's no instant communication. So this person, he comes to visit Medina, for example, once a month. So he's come, he's visited Rasulullah, and the following month he comes, he finds out that Rasulullah is no more. Right? So when he's come this time, now he sees that Rasulullah is no longer alive. And there's somebody else in his place, but this person who's in his place doesn't have any of the characteristics of Rasulullah. There's nothing about him which is like Rasulullah. So he comes into the masjid and he says that Rasulullah promised me that if you convert 80 tribes to Islam, then I will give you 80 red camels. Each camel will have jewels and pearls on them. So the Khilafat says to him, we can't give you anything because Rasulullah didn't leave anything behind. Between the brackets, whatever he left behind, we've taken it. A state of fadak which he left behind, we have taken it. So there's nothing else left from which we can give you anything. So he says, but Rasulullah promised me. So they say to him, do you have witnesses? Of course, when you can ask the daughter of the Holy Prophet for witnesses, then you can ask anybody for witnesses. So he says, do you have any witnesses? So he says, I don't need to have any witnesses. I have a document that's written by Rasulullah, which promises me these 80 red camels. So he takes out the document. He says, here's the document. They say, whatever you produce and whatever you give, it's immaterial because we have nothing to give. So this person says that this is the promise of Rasulullah. And Rasulullah is Rasul Sadiq. He's the truthful one. His promise has to be true. So in the masjid is Salman. And Salman says to him, I'll take you to the place where your matter can be resolved. I will take you there where your matter can be resolved. So Salman takes him and comes to the door of Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Imam alayhi salam, he's inside the house, and Salman and this person are standing outside. When they reach, Imam from inside the house says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Samsam, to this person. Now he is shocked. He says, I've never met him before. I don't know him. How does he know my name? And how does he know from behind the wall? We only believe in that person as the Imam who sees through the wall as he sees without the wall. Wall, doors, windows, they are not impairments for him. Why? Because he has got power, wilayat over taqween, over everything in the universe. Wall and door and window are not things which would impair his vision or his knowledge. So he comes out and he says, why are you worried? Your matter will be resolved. Why? It's the promise of Rasulullah Sadiq. It has to be true. Whatever the Rasulullah has promised you will be true. But not here. You have to come tomorrow at the mountain of Uhud. So now imagine that in Medina the news spreads that Ali alayhi salam has promised Abu Samsam 80 camels at the mountain of Uhud. Those of you who've been for Hajj and Umrah and done the ziyarat of mountain of Uhud, know that it's a very impressive place. At that time it's outside the city of Medina. Today obviously Medina is expanded, now it's considered to be part of Medina, but at that time mountain of Uhud, and Uhud is a place outside of Medina. But it's a very impressive place. Those of you who've been will know that when you reach there and you see the mountain, you realize how impressive a place it is. And I pray that those of you who've never been to, inshallah ta'ala, at least once in your life go and visit that place, inshallah. So now this news is spread that you have to come at mountain of Uhud. So now nobody in Medina can stay in their house. They have to come to mountain of Uhud to see what's going to happen. So in reality, Rasulullah had gathered the people at Qadir to announce the wilayat of Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam has gathered the people at Mount Uhud to announce the imamat of Imam Hasan Mujtaba alayhi salam. So now they're all gathered. All of Medina has reached. They're wondering what's going to happen. When they reach, Imam Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam calls on Imam Hasan Mujtaba alayhi salam. And he says to him that I want you to move this stone. So he moves it. And then he says, now I want you to put your hand inside the mountain. So he puts his hand inside the mountain and he pulls out a rope. Imagine, what did the ayat say? فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا. You have to hold on to the firm handle. And the Imam is the firm handle. But here literally he is handing the firm handle. He takes out the rope and he hands it to Abu Samsam. He says, pull the rope. He starts pulling the rope. 1 camel comes out, 2 camels, 3 camels. 80 camels come out. Imam Hasan Mujtaba says to him, if the promise from Rasulullah was not 80, you could have kept on pulling the rope and camels would have kept coming out. The promise from Rasulullah was 80, that's why we stopped at 80. Otherwise, you kept on pulling the rope and camels would have kept on coming out. Imam Amirul Mu'minin says, did you notice the precaution that I took? If I wanted, I could have brought out camels in Medina. But if I brought out camels in Medina, people would have done fatwa of kufr, that Imam Amirul Mu'minin is doing magic. I brought out the camels from the same place as the camel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came out. Naqatullah also came out from the mountain. So, did you see my precaution that if anybody would accuse me, I would say that no, just as the camel of Allah came out from the mountain, this camel that Rasulullah had promised, 80 camels that he promised, also came out from the mountain. And this is the announcement of the imamat of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. So yes, taking over the power is easy, but to fulfill the promise of Rasulullah is difficult. And only the true successor of Rasulullah is the one who can fulfill his promises, or who will fulfill his promises. Whatever Rasulullah has made as a promise, the true successor of Rasulullah, whosoever that is in whichever time, will be the one who would fulfill that promise. Now, this is the second stage of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam's life. Now the third stage. This third stage, also key stage. This third stage is perhaps the most important stage of his life. Why? Imagine in the history of Islam, there's only one person, one man, who was unanimously accepted by all the Muslims as the Khalifa. Unanimously. And that is Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba. In the history of Islam, there's only one person who is unanimously accepted as Khalifa, and that is Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba. And that this tragedy is that the only person who is unanimously accepted as the Khalifa is the one who is deposed the fastest. The only person. Imagine, no other Khalifa before or after is unanimously accepted by the Muslims. But by a popular vote, unanimously accepted by the Muslims as the fifth Khalifa is Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba. Yet he is deposed in 6 months. That's it. After the Shahadat of Imam Amirul Mu'minin in 6 months. Now, why does he do this? All these accusations, he did it for this reason and that reason, and he did it because he wanted an easy life, and he did it because he was a coward, or he was not willing to fight. All of these things. So why? First of all, Imam ﷺ is the one who doesn't just see his own time. He has to prepare for the time that's going to come. Number one. Imagine that Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba ﷺ goes to war and everybody is killed. Then what's going to happen at Karbala? If Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba ﷺ goes to war and everybody is killed, then what's going to happen at Karbala? There's going to be no one left. And the battle of Karbala is more important. The day of Ashura is more important. And Imam Hasan ﷺ is going to tell us how important it is. I mentioned that in the Masai. But secondly, he has to look at his own time as well. In his own time, Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba is following the seerat of his grandfather Rasulullah. Rasulullah said what in that narration? He said, Hassan resembles my top half and Hussein resembles my bottom half. What does this mean? The hands are in the top half and the feet are in the bottom half. So when the hands sign the peace treaty, they are the hands of Rasulullah signing the peace treaty. And when the feet go towards Karbala, it's the feet of Rasulullah going towards Karbala. Right? Number one. Number two, Rasulullah signed the peace treaty with whom? Rasulullah signed the peace treaty with those people who are not willing to write Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim on the document. Imam Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam wrote Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They said, take this out. Then he wrote, this is an agreement between Muhammad Rasulullah and Suhail ibn Umar. They said, if we believed in you as Muhammad Rasulullah, we wouldn't have to have this agreement. So this Rasulullah agreed to a peace treaty with people who didn't want Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rasulullah agreed to a peace treaty with people who were not willing to have Muhammad Rasulullah written on the document. Why? If we understand this point, this is the root and the key to understanding this whole matter of Rasulullah and of Imam Hasan. And that is that the policy of Islam is what? The policy of Islam is that if peace is offered to you, you have to accept. The policy of religion of Islam and the policy of Ma'soom is that if peace is offered to you, you have to accept it. Why? To prove that religion of Islam is Islam of peace and not of war. If peace is offered to you, why? At Hudaybiyah, the enemy said that we don't want to go to war, we want to make peace. Rasulullah accepted the peace. Rasulullah accepted that Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is not written on the document. Why? Because making peace is more important than writing Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Making peace is more important than writing Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim on the document. So Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam at least made peace with those people who said, verbally accepted the kalima. Those who verbally accepted the kalima. Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, he makes this peace, and there are conditions in the peace treaty. I'll just mention one of them. Before I mention that, I use an example to highlight the importance of this. Example is very obvious and very simple. In mantiq we have, or in logic, we have mantuq and we have mafhum. And mantuq is that which is the sentence that's mentioned, and mafhum is the meaning which is derived from that sentence. Not necessarily said, but it's the meaning that is derived as a result of what has been mentioned, or what is obvious from what has been mentioned. For example, if we say that it's dark outside, that means that the sun is not out. We don't need to say that there's no sun, because when we said it's dark outside, that means the sun has gone down. The mafhum of that sentence is that sun has. Or if we say that it is light outside, that means the sun is out. We don't need to say both of these things at the same time. When we said one of them, we understood the other. The mafhum of the other is already derived from this sentence. Similarly, one of the conditions, or the first condition in the peace treaty is what? Is that Amir of Sham would adhere to Quran and Sunnah. What does that mean? That means that up to now he doesn't adhere to Quran and Sunnah. Up to now he doesn't. Otherwise he would say, why have you put this as a condition? I already accept Quran and Sunnah. I already follow Quran and Sunnah. When it says from today onwards he will follow Quran and Sunnah, that means up to now he's not following Quran and Sunnah. Imagine that this is the greatest favor that Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam did on you, I and everybody in the Ummah, that we would never have been able to prove that Amir of Sham was not following Quran and Sunnah, but by doing the peace treaty he made Amir of Sham write it in his own pen and sign the document himself and attest to the fact that he was not following Quran and Sunnah. This is the greatest favor in the third phase of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. And he does this in order to prove that, number one, Islam is a religion of peace. Number two, that religion of Islam wants solutions with the least amount of casualties. Even if you have to go to war, then there needs to be the least amount of casualties. Religion of Islam doesn't even want non-Muslims to die, let alone Muslims. In today's day and age, in the name of Rasulullah, Muslims are killing Muslims. Whereas religion of Islam is saying that even non-Muslims shouldn't die. Unnecessarily, even non-Muslims shouldn't die, let alone Muslims dying, let alone Muslims being killed by Muslims in the name of what? In the name of Tawheen Risalat. In the name of Shan Risalat. Rasulullah doesn't want non-Muslims to die, let alone that people reciting his kalima kill people who also recite his kalima because they think they're defending Risalat by doing so. Imagine. But this is what happens when you take Rasulullah without Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message is that we put the birthday of Rasulullah with one Imam and the Shahadat of Rasulullah with another Imam to tell you that you can't separate Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam from Rasulullah. That whenever you talk about Rasulullah, you have to talk about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Right? 17th of Rabiul Awwal is Rasulullah and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and 28th of Safar is Rasulullah and Imam Hasan alayhi salam, to tell us that Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt can't be separated. When you speak about Rasulullah, you have to speak about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam as well. And in the Shahadat particularly, not only the date is the same, but the way of Shahadat is the same. The style of Shahadat is the same. The poison is the same. The person administering the poison is the same. It's mentioned that Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam is given poison on a number of occasions. Some narratives mention that he's given poison on the 7th of Safar, and for this reason some places and some instances mention 7th of Safar as the day of his Shahadat. And then he's given poison again, and then finally he's given poison on the 28th of Safar. And it's added to the drinking water. And this poison that he's given is so strong that it cracks his liver. Imagine, you know better than me that liver is one of the strongest parts of the body. If something cracks the liver, imagine how strong it is. It cracks the liver. It breaks into pieces. Imam Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam called on Imam Hussain. He says, my brother Hussain, bring me a tray. When he brings the tray, he sees that pieces of his liver, cracked, are coming to his mouth and coming onto the tray. Imam Hussain alayhi salam sees this moment and he cries a lot. Imam Hasan alayhi salam consoled his brother. He says, Hussain, be patient. Why? He says, Hussain, La yawm li yawmik ya Aba Abdillah. This, my grief, my sorrow, it's nothing compared to the day of Ashura. There's no day like your day. Imagine at the moment Hassan Mujtaba salam is dying and he's telling Hussein salam that there's no day like your day. There's no day like Ashura. Remember that Ashura, Imam salam is saying there's no day like his day. There's no day like Ashura. There's no day that can be compared with Ashura. Allah. Hassan Mujtaba salam says, Hussein, when I die, do the ghusl, do the kafan, and bury me next to my grandfather Rasulullah. You know, when people are put on death row for crimes, criminals, they've killed people, they've murdered people, and they're put on death row. Before they die, before they're executed, they say to them, what is your final wish? And that person's final wish is fulfilled. This is the system irrespective of religion. Allahu Akbar. The grandson of the Prophet had a final wish, that he wanted to be buried next to his grandfather Rasulullah. So what did the Muslims do? What did the Muslims do when Imam Hasan salam made this final wish that he wants to be buried next to Rasulullah? And then he said he knew what was going to happen. He says, Hussein, if there's going to be fighting, then don't make sure there's no fighting. And bury me in Baqi. Hasan Mujtaba salam passes away. Ghusl is done, kafan is put on, and Imam Hussein salam takes his body towards the mazar of the Holy Prophet. When he reaches there, there's a group of Banu Umayyah who are gathered there with a wife of the Prophet, and they're shouting at the grave of the Prophet. They're saying that we would not allow Hassan ibn Ali to be buried here. One Mal'un says, Marwan ibn Hakam, he says, how is it possible that so-and-so be buried outside Medina and Hassan buried next to the Holy Prophet? We will not let it happen. Allahu Akbar. Imam Hussein salam recalls the wasiyat from his brother Hassan Mujtaba salam, and he says that there's going to be no fighting. Otherwise, who could have stopped Abu al-Fadl Abbas? And who could have stopped Muslim ibn Aqil? And who could have stopped Muhammad Hanafiya? But Imam Hussein salam turns to them and says, I need you for Karbala. If there's fighting here, if you're killed, then what's going to happen at Karbala? I need you for Karbala. He says, my brother Hassan said, no fighting. They turned the funeral and they're going towards Baqi, but this was not sufficient for the enemies. The Muslims, those who recited the kalima of the Holy Prophet, they started to fire arrows at the body of Imam Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam. One narrative says 7 arrows were fired, and one narrative says 70 arrows were fired at the body of Imam Hasan Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. If you cry, if you weep, if you ponder on this point is sufficient. Allama Hafiz Kifayat Hussain says the difference between Hassan and Hussein is that Hassan Mujtaba had arrows in his funeral and Hussein alayhi salam body was resting on the arrows. When he fell from the horse onto the ground, he didn't go on the ground. Why? Because he was pierced with arrows from all sides. When he fell off the horse, his body was resting on those arrows. Hazrat Mujtaba salam's funeral is brought back into the house. The kafan has become red with all the arrows. There's no person in the history who's ever been fired with arrows after he's died. Hazrat Mujtaba salam is the only one. His funeral is brought back into the house. The arrows are removed. New kafan is placed. Imam Hussein salam takes the body and he buries him in Baqi. He buries him in Baqi. Hassan Mujtaba is mazloom today as well. That you go towards Karbala, 20 million people are visiting Hussein alayhi salam. But Hasan Mujtaba alayhi salam, lonely, dark grave. No shade on his grave in Al-Baqi. Nobody could go there to weep or mourn over him, to do his ziyarah, to say salam over him. Why? Because 15-foot wall is there. It only opens at Fajr and Asr, and when you go in there, they tell you, go from here, don't stop here. Hasan Mujtaba alayhi salam, mazloom even today. But Hussein alayhi salam buries him. When he buries him, he stands at the grave and he recites a long ode. He says, "Oh my brother Hassan, you left us and now it is up to me to deal with Banu Umayyah." Hussein alayhi salam fulfills the peace treaty of Hassan alayhi salam until the day of Ashura comes. When the day of Ashura comes, Qasim ibn Hassan, 13 years of age, comes to him. And he says, "Oh my uncle Hussein, give me permission to go to the battlefield." Hussein alayhi salam says to him, "Qasim, how can I give you permission to go to the battlefield? Every time I remember my brother Hassan, I look at you. And you remind me of him. How could I let you go?" Qasim comes back to his mother. He says, "My uncle Hussein doesn't give me permission to go to the battlefield." Farwa remembers the moment when Hasan Mujtaba was about to die. And she says, "Qasim, when you were 3 years old and your father was about to die, he tied a writing on your right arm, and he said, when a day of calamity comes, open it, read it and act on it." Farwa says, "Qasim, what greater day of calamity can there be than today? Open the amulet." They open the amulet, they read the writing, and they take it. Qasim brings it to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein alayhi salam sees the writing of his brother. What does it say? It says, "Hussein, on the day of Ashura, you would be surrounded by the enemies. I would not be there, but consider Qasim to be my representative on that day." Hussein alayhi salam, the Maqatil states that Hussein alayhi salam embraces Qasim and he cries so much that they both fall down onto the ground unconscious. When they regain consciousness, Qasim alayhi salatu wasalam is put on the turban of Hasan Mujtaba, the robe of Hasan Mujtaba, the shoes of Hasan Mujtaba, and then Hussein alayhi salam takes the turban of Qasim and he rips it from both sides. This is the sign that the child is an orphan. This is the sign that the child is an orphan. Qasim goes into the battlefield. He kills the enemies. When he kills the enemies and he gets surrounded by them, then he calls on his uncle Hussein, "Oh my uncle Hussein, come to my aid." "Oh my master Hasan Mujtaba alayhi salam, your liver had cracked into pieces, yes. But what happens with your son is even more heartbreaking." Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam comes into the battlefield. Accompanied with him is Abu al-Fadl and Abbas. When the enemies see that Hussein and Abbas are coming, they get startled. They think they're going to come and attack us. When they see that they're going to come and attack us, Qasim is already on the ground and the horses go right and left and they trample over the body of Qasim. They trample onto the body of Qasim, and Qasim's body is in pieces. When Hussein alayhi salam reaches, he says, "Qasim, you called on your uncle, but your uncle couldn't come on time." For everybody, Hussein alayhi salam carried the body into the tents. Qasim's body is in pieces. How does he carry it into the tents? He takes off his robe, he gathers all the pieces and he ties it in his robe. When he comes back into the tents, the women say, "Oh, our master Hussein, where is the body of Qasim?" Hussein alayhi salam opens the robe. He says, "This is the body of Qasim." على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون ما كانوا سيئين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hasan, Ya Hasan, Ya Hasan, Ya Hasan, سب Ya Hasan, Ya Hasan, Ya Hasan, Ya Hasan, Ya Hasan. بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا حسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا حسن سبز کبا کلمہ گویوں نے کیا خوب کیا وعدہ وفا حسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا تیرے تابوت پہ کس واسطے مارے گئے تیر اے مسلمانوں کے پیر اے مسلمانوں کے پیر تیرے تابوت پہ کس واسطے مارے گئے تیر اے مسلمانوں کے پیر اے مسلمانوں کے پیر کلمہ پڑھتے نہ تھے جد کا تیرے اہل جفا وحسن سبز کبا گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا وقت رحلت تیرے نانا نے وصیحت کی تھی اس پہ تاکید یہ کی اس پہ تاکید یہ کی اہل بیت اور کلام اللہ ہے بس میرے سوا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا جب سے آئی صدا بیٹا حسن جلدی آ تاکہ دوں تجھ کو دکھا تاکہ دوں تجھ کو دکھا تیر مارے تجھے چلنی ہے کلیجہ میرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا فاطمہ زہرا کی یوں ہلد سے آتی تھی صدا کہ دوں تجھ کو دکھا کہ دوں تجھ کو دکھا چکیاں ایک چکیاں پیس کے پالا تھا جسے وہ نہ رہا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا بے گناہ مارا گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وحسن سبز کبا ایک تو باغ فدق اور تراوت چھینی اس پہ کی بے دینی اس کیجے دینی پہلو میں نانک بھی دفن نہ ہونے دیا وہ حسن سبز کما بے گناہ مار گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وہ حسن سبز کما بے گناہ مار گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وہ حسن سبز کما بے گناہ مار گیا صرف رسول دوسرا وہ حسن سبز کما بھائی کی لاش پہ رو رو کے یہ زینب نے کہا آرزو تھی بھیا آرزو تھی بھیا کاش عبداللہ و قاسم کو بناتے دولہا و حسن سبز کما بے گناہ مار گیا صرف رسول دوسرا و حسن سبز کما بے گناہ مار گیا صرف رسول دوسرا و حسن سبز کما کلمہ گویوں نے کیا خوب کیا وعدہ وفا و حسن سبز کما بے گناہ مار گیا صرف رسول دوسرا و حسن یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین حسین یا حسین حسین یا حسین حسین یا حسین حسین یا حسین
صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا ہم دیتے ہیں پرسا تمہیں عباس جری کا ہم دیتے ہیں پرسا تمہیں عباس جری کا اور اکبر دلگیر کا یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا پامال کیا قاسم بے کس کی لاش کو پامال کیا قاسم بے کس کی لاش کو کبرا کو بھی بیوہ کیا یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا ہم دیتے ہیں پرسا تمہیں عباس جری کا ہم دیتے ہیں پرسا تمہیں عباس جری کا اور اکبر دلگیر کا یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا زینب کے پسر اونو محمد کا بھی پرسا زینب کے پسر اونو محمد کا بھی پرسا اور اصغر بشیر کا یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا کانوں سے سکینہ کے اتارے گئے گوہر کانوں سے سکینہ کے اتارے گئے گوہر زینب کی بچھینی ہے رضا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا بیڑی پنائی گوہری بدن زخمی کر دیا بیڑی پنائی گوہری بدن زخمی کر دیا سجاد پہ یہ ظلم کیا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا صلوات و سلام آپ پہ یا فاطمہ زہرا ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا، ہم آئے ہیں پرسے کے لیے فاطمہ زہرا، یا حسین یا حسین.
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا أجعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك جدك وأبيك وأمك وأخيك وأئمتك من بنيك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء وبعيد المدى السلطان أم الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا. سلام الله على آبائك الطاهرين وأبنائك المعصومين وعلى أختك فاطمة المعصومة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك صاحب العصر والزمان سيدي الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا حجة المنان. السلام عليك قامع الكفر والطغيان. السلام عليك يا دافع الظلم والعدوان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك وشيعتك. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل